Well, welcome everybody to our Tuesday live stream with Nicole Sauce, John Willis, and today we have another John Pugliano. John, how's it going, Pugliano? I have to John P and John W. John Pugliano, how's it going?
It's great, Nicole. Thanks for having me on. Hi, John Willis. How are you?
I'm well, man. How are you?
Never been better.
Great. Well, John Pugliano, I appreciate you making time to be on today. Because I don't know, John Willis, have you been getting a bunch of people freaking out about the quote unquote banking crisis?
No, we've been having conversations, at the 9 o'clock video about it, but I don't see people really freaking out over it.
I've had people jumping on my channels telling people to convert everything to gold and silver, and I've had some very tense emails from folks. Oh, do we have an echo? Packrat? We might have an echo, John P.
I don't hear an echo.
Okay, I don't hear an echo. Okay, guys, in the comments, just tell us if you hear an echo. It may be because John Pugliano's headset was giving him fits today. And if that's the case, I will mute when I'm talking and John Willis is talking. You.
I will work on my headset here too.
Okay, cool. Oh, no, he was just super excited about two Johns being on here. Okay, great. Well, we've had echo problems in the past, so I like to keep. So anyway, I've had some tense emails about people wondering what to do with their money. The scale of money that people are talking about is under $10,000, generally speaking. So let's start with this. So I understand that a couple of banks have been taken over by the FDIC and quote unquote gone out of business or going bankrupt. John Pugliano, can you tell us a little bit about what that is, how that works, and if you have looked into why? Right.
Okay. And to your point about $10,000 or less, as we talk about this, I'm just going to talk broadly about situations. If you have $1,000, you have a different problem or situation than if you have 10 million, right? And if you're 18, you have a different situation than if you're 80. So, broadly, we're going to cover topics, but as far as the banks themselves, even within them, a lot of stuff in the news. Silicon Valley Bank, it's basically a startup bank out of California. We'll talk about them, but their situation is totally different from an East Coast bank named Signature Bank. And both of those are totally different than a European bank named Credit Suisse, right? So, there's all kinds of different reasons. The media, like they always do, they got this big umbrella to scare people, and they're saying, there's a run on the bank, there's a banking crisis, and then they just throw out whatever stories they can to try and justify their position. So totally different situations and issues. But the big one, the SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, is one that went under receivership last week. I think it was last Friday, and they pretty much collapsed within 48 hours, which is pretty amazing. Number one, there were some shenanigans there, so I'm not going to justify.
There were shenanigans? No way.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. Gee, surprise. Rich bankers made special deals for other rich elite people. What shocking. So taking the shenanigan part out of it, and it wasn't out and out fraud like FTX. Okay? FTX was a out and out fraud. This was good old boy type shenanigans, which go on all the time. It's coming to the light now only because they got caught with their pants down. And what they really got caught with effectively are three things. One, and this is affecting all banks, especially little regional banks, which have been mostly hit. Investors are pulling their money out of banking accounts because they're not getting paid any interest, right? So you're getting pretty much 0% interest in your checking or savings account. And in a money market fund or a CD or something, you're getting, 5.5%, 4.5%. So investors all over the country are waking up to, or just savers all over the country are waking up to this, and they're pulling their money out of these banks. That's number one. Number two, specific to Silicon Valley Bank, their clientele and the people that they lend to are primarily startups. Okay, the IPOs, that private equity capital that we all hear about. And that's pretty much tech companies and life science, biotech type companies. That's all the rage now, along with artificial intelligence. Well, those companies by their very nature don't make any money, right? They have no profits. And you invest in one or 1,000, invest maybe 100 or 1,000 of them, and one of them turns into a Google, or one of them turns into an Amazon. So they're high risk to begin with. All this capital's flow to these companies, especially over the last 15 years, because of negative interest rates or super low interest rates or easy monetary policy from the Federal Reserve. And that's all drying up. So interest rates are higher, Federal Reserve's pulling back on monetary policy. So now all the money that they had either for their billionaire clientele or for these startup companies is drying up, and the valuations are going down on them. Okay, so on the books they've invested in this company that's worth $1 billion. Well, that was 6 months ago. Now they're only worth 300,000. So right, so they got to mark to market all that stuff, and at the same time, this is a biggie, and it's hitting everybody, all the banks, and no one's talking about the pension funds and the insurance companies, which it's hitting even more. But no one's talking about that. That'll be next week, right? That'll be the crisis du jour next week. But the other big factor that's hitting all this is that all these establishments are pretty much forced by regulation to invest in something safe, which is considered U.S. Treasuries. Okay? Well, as interest rates go up, bond values go down. And it doesn't matter no matter what bond you're invested in, whether it's a U.S. Treasury or not, the market price value is going to go down when interest rates go up, right? So if you're getting a bond at 2% interest, and then now interest rates are at 5%, no one wants that bond, that cheap bond anymore, right? They want the bond that's paying more money. And since the yield and the price of that are inverse of each other, all those, quote, safe security treasuries that all these institutions, pension funds, insurance companies, banks, and all these people have to invest in, they're now worth a lot less today than they were a year or two ago. So when you combine all those things up, that hit Silicon Valley Bank the hardest. And then everybody else is sort of a version, some kind of a version of that. But what you end up with, though, is a run on the bank. And that's the other big thing, where even the banks that don't have any of these issues or have very minor issues, a run on the bank in and of itself is a problem. If you remember the old, Nicole, you're too young. You're a classic person, so you've seen it, but I know John's seen it. It's a Wonderful Life. The old Jimmy Stewart Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life. That there's a run on the bank. Pottersville. There's a big run on the bank, and the big lesson of that movie is that the run on the bank causes the run on the bank. Even if it's solvents, right? Even because the whole concept of banking, and a lot of people don't like fractional banking, and we can get into that. But the bottom line is, it is what it is, right? And the whole fractional banking system, the concept is there's not any money in the bank. There just isn't, right? All the money that you put in the bank is loaned out in multiples to other people for appreciating assets. And so anytime people want to pull their money out of the bank, it creates a run, and there's no money there to pay for it. So that's all the problems. Bottom line in all this, though, is the Federal Reserve backs it all up, right? And they back it up with funny money. So again, we can argue that point, but this banking crisis has lasted about a day or so. I mean, already the S&P 500 is back up above its one-year moving average. Bank stocks that were down 50% the last 2 days are suddenly, they're not back to where they were, but they're up quite a bit. The bottom line, where people in our community get so worried about, the ATM is going to run out of money, or there's going to be bank bail-ins, or these things never happen. And if they do, it's limited and small scale, because the Federal Reserve does come in and backfill all this, just like Social Security is never going to go bankrupt, right? There is no Social Security trust fund, right? It's a myth. It's all a lie. Is Social Security a Ponzi scheme? Absolutely. But it's a Ponzi scheme that they control the printing press and they print the money. So the government is never not going to pay you your Social Security, because they can just print you money that's worthless and give it to you. And I don't know, maybe I'm too cynical, but that's the short answer to everything. Our long answer, I guess, more or less. John fell asleep, so it's probably a long answer.
No, I think that most people having the conversation don't have $1,000, right? They don't have money for rent, much less any concern that they're going to lose. There is no savings, right? There is no investment for most of the people. People are constantly like, hey, how do you buy gold? Well, how much gold are you buying? Well, I thought I might buy, a 10th ounce. Like it doesn't matter where you buy it at that level. It doesn't matter.
And that's the key to success right there is worrying about the things that you can impact and the things that can make you money. And 95% of people are not successful because they worry about the wrong stuff, right? They're worried about losing $300 in a bank that's only there for 5 days because they've already cashed their check and spent it anyways, right? Their paycheck's already gone before they ever got it. But they're going to be all worried about what they're going to lose in a bank run instead of focusing on how can I make more money, right? How can I be more productive? How can I save that money and invest in myself to make more money? That's what people miss. And the good news, bad news, I would say the good news is for the 5% of us that want to be successful, it makes life a lot easier.
When you stop paying those overdraft fees every week, we'll discuss.
Yeah, I know. So my mind does tend to go to, okay, there's this situation happening where a bank has gone out of business and then a couple more went down and it happened very quickly. Did I have anything in that bank? Zero. Do I know anybody who had anything in that bank? No. But my mind kind of goes to, okay, so what would happen if my bank failed? So then I looked at all my deposits and I was like, all of that would be gone. The FDIC would come in and it's under their line. And so it would be eventually made right. The worst thing that would happen is I wouldn't have access to that money for a period of time. What would I do? Well, I earn money every week some way. So, if the FDIC can't come in and give everybody money,
$250,000 per individual. So a husband and wife joint account, $500,000. Most people do not have $500,000 sitting in their checking account. So it doesn't even matter. It's a moot.
So, and if we're so bad off, the FDIC can't do what it was set up to do, the last thing I'm going to be thinking about is the money in the bank that's gone. I think, like, if it really went full on disaster. So then I started asking the next question, which is, okay, when monetary systems crumble, when economies go down the tank, what do the people who get through that the best do? Do they have a pile of silver in their basement? Did they leave before it happened? That's a successful strategy.
So that's what Peter Thiel did over at Silicon Valley Bank. He pulled his billions out, 2 days before.
He was like, I see this coming, I'm out.
Well, he got the phone call.
Yeah, I'm sure. But the other thing is, when I looked at just some historical examples, and I wish I could have gotten CJ Kilmer on today too, because that would have been interesting. You start trading in hard goods with each other until something comes back into place.
Yeah. And even before any of that happens, right? Before any major crisis is going to happen, look at what's happened last week and this week. I forget the exact number, but something like 95% of the money at Silicon Valley Bank is not FDIC insurable. Okay, because again, this was billionaire money.
Right.
And this was money not only to individual billionaires, but also to their companies. So, all these high tech companies around the world had money sitting there, payroll money, right? John Willis, you have money, I'm sure, sitting in a bank account somewhere that you got to make payroll with at the end of this week. Yep. Same thing with all those companies. They have money sitting there, billions of dollars. That is not covered by FDIC insurance. And again, that's what sparked a lot of the fears. Well, all this money's gone. Well, on Sunday morning, Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, comes out on TV. And I find this funny. A lot of people don't think this is funny. I think it's funny. She comes out Monday or Sunday morning and says, there will be no taxpayer bailouts of these banks. We're not doing what was done in 2008, which she was the mastermind of, right? Or she was like number 2 or 3 in charge of that. So suddenly that was a bad idea, but her fingerprints are all over it. But she comes out, we're not going to bail them out. We're not helping these people, no taxpayer money involved. Within an hour, the Federal Reserve comes out and says, we're backstopping everything. No depositors are going to lose a dime. Right? So the story is being spun that, yeah, the investors in the bank are going to lose money, and this people who own the stock, and people that had bonds and stuff in the bank itself, not like CDs, but the ownership of the bank, they're going to get hurt. But none of the depositors will. Well, all the money was with the depositors anyways. Right? The bank itself, I think, was only worth something like 40 billion market cap, 40 or 60 billion. So it wasn't that big in scale. But the Federal Reserve is coming in and underwriting all those uninsured FDIC accounts. Why? Because if they didn't, the whole tech sector would fall apart, right? They're just going to do it. And it's musical chairs. It's the shell game, right? Over the last couple months, the Federal Reserve has just stopped quantitative easing. Right? We've been in one form or another of quantitative easing for 15 years, right? Since the last crisis, this is 2 crises ago. We never officially stopped it. And that meaning that the Federal Reserve is coming in mostly buying U.S. government debt, other debt, but mostly U.S. government. Well, we did this up to maybe 8 months ago. It got to the point where during the pandemic for the last 2.5 years, they were buying 120 billion a month. Right? This is what people worry about Social Security going bankrupt or something. It's like they're buying 120 billion a month of government debt every month, every 30 days, in and out. Well, they just recently stopped that. And so they call it tightening, right? They're tightening their balance sheet, reducing it. Well, half of that money that they've saved in these last few months just went into bailing out that bank. So all they did was the government bonds that they're no longer buying, okay, or that they've let mature and run off their balance sheet, all they did was come in and guarantee those government bonds that I just talked about at these banks that the government, but no one's selling those government bonds, right? Because they're going to sell them at a loss. So no one wants to take a loss. So the Federal Reserve is just saying, we know you have $50 billion in government bonds. We know they're only worth $35 billion, but you're going to hold them for the next 15 or 20 years till maturity. And in the meantime, we're going to guarantee that $50 billion. So they're just moving it around, you know, and it doesn't matter. And in that big scheme of things, it doesn't affect the price of gold or commodities or any of this stuff because it's just moving it around. Long term, those could be good investments because inflation is not going anywhere. Where we got the print today. Everybody's all excited. Inflation is only 6%, right? And we know if they say it's 6, it's probably 15.
Right.
It's only 6%. So good news. Market's up almost 2% because inflation's only 6.
What's 6 minus 2?
Yeah, you're losing 4%, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that is the real thing that I've been telling everybody about is that even with all the rise in interest rates, we're still at negative interest rates, negative real rates. They're paying you 4 or 5%, but since inflation's 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever, in real terms, you're still losing money, which allows the system to perpetuate itself. Right? The system can't go bankrupt when they're allowed to counterfeit money. So until that stops, system ain't going down.
How long do you think they'll be allowed to counterfeit money?
How long have they been allowed?
Yeah, since before George Washington was president, I think is how long we've been doing it. I got my education. Nicole put a picture of me on in the promo today that she said she got, I don't know, wherever.
I got it off Jack Spirko's website.
Yeah, and I got to find out where he's using that from because I look like an insurance salesman in that picture. I'm wearing a suit and tie and stuff. I'm like, in fact, I shaved today and wore a collar shirt because I thought no one would recognize me in that picture. But I normally don't look that way. I think I was dressed up for one of my grandkids' baptisms or something.
I've literally never seen you in a suit or tie, which was why I thought that picture was hilarious.
Yeah, not my thing. But anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that. How long have you been counterfeiting money? So I learned the most about.
There you are.
There I am. Yep. And I'm usually one of those, either the beard one or the one on the far right is what I normally look like. Far left on my side.
Yeah.
Or with my dog.
Yep.
The reason I kind of brought that up is I'm a regular guy, right? John, our backgrounds are, I don't know your background 100%, but I bet we have very similar backgrounds. I joined the Marine Corps at 17. Okay. I joined the Marine Corps not because I was a patriot, not because the World Trade Center got bombed or Pearl Harbor got bombed or something. I joined because I needed a job, right? And the Marine Corps was about the best opportunity I had growing up in Western Pennsylvania at the time. I barely graduated from high school. I was going to join the Navy because I knew they had really good schools and trainings and I could see the world, but they had uniforms that were really ugly. So I joined the Marine Corps, right? That's how smart I was when I was 17. Okay. Today, I'm a multimillionaire, not because I'm a genius, not because I work harder than anybody else, not because I got lucky, not because I inherited it, but kind of how we open the show up. I do those things that we talked about of just focusing on the task at hand and completing it. And this whole thing about, the gloom and doom, the prepper porn, gold's going to go to $10,000 an ounce. Those things you can always draw a line to them and say, yeah, there could be an electromagnetic pulse tomorrow and all the world changes as we know it. That could happen. But what I've learned over my life and what I learned a long time ago was that most likely, you're going to get cancer, you're going to have a stroke, you're going to have a heart attack, you're going to get a divorce, you're going to get fired from your job. Right? Those are the things that are going to impact you. You're going to get in a car accident long before there's a nuclear explosion. Right? So, if you worry about those things, that's where you want to focus. And kind of that whole point about how long we've been counterfeiting money. I literally, as a little kid, my grandfather was a coal miner, disabled coal miner. He had black lung. And so he would babysit me during the day in the summer from the time I was like 5 to probably 12. In the summer months when my mom was working, I'd go with my grandfather. And when he was babysitting me, we would go to the VFW club, which is a bar. Anybody knows what a VFW club is. And so as a little kid, my job would be to take the money out of the jukebox and out of the illegal slot machines and stuff that they had and separate the silver coins from the non-silver coins, right? Because, so back in the day, I was hearing about, we're going to default, there's not going to be any money, the debt's at, whatever it was back then, debt's at $100 million or something, it pales in comparison. Today, our debt is 31 trillion, right? Far in excess of the GDP. And everybody said, if it gets over the GDP, we're going to go bankrupt. Listen, Japan, I don't have the number in front of me, but Japan is something like 280% of their GDP in debt. At least 250, I think close to 280% of their GDP. Japanese economy, it's struggled for a long time, but they still have a high quality of life. They're still making products. People still, are living their lives pretty good. And the most important thing of this is that more than half of that debt is financed by the Bank of Japan. Like we talked about our Federal Reserve buying our debt. More than half of all the Japanese government debt is owned by their Federal Reserve, the Japanese bank, the Bank of Japan, official Central Bank of Japan. At some point, they will forgive those loans. They will wipe out more than half of Japanese government debt. And you're going to say, well, that'll make, gold skyrocket or the yen will go down. It won't. The inflation's it's been baked in the system for the last 40 years. They're not stealing from their future generations of kids because, well, in their case, they're not having any kids, right? That's the whole point. The reason they have all this printing of money without inflation is because they have a declining population. And even in our country, although we're not anywhere near as bad as Japan and other countries, we have a declining population base. And so the government can get away with printing money, which is inflationary, because things like technology and declining demographics are deflationary, right? And so they balance themselves out. And I know it'll give you a headache if you think about it, but it's really true. The people, not the politicians, but the actual puppet masters behind the scenes that are pulling the strings and running the show, they're evil, right? But they're not stupid, right? They know what they're doing, and how long can they kick the can down the road? I think I've been hearing about this since the 1960s, that we're going to go bankrupt. And, even if we do, right? And this is a discussion I get into with people all the time about, the things that have made us successful in this environment and this economy. Well, are we going to just roll over and quit if things fall apart? Right? We're just going to shoot. If I don't have any laws to constrain me, I'll make even more money, right? I mean, when people say, well, if everything goes down, what are you going to do? Well, shoot, I could make money in an environment where I'm in one of the most regulated businesses in the world. If I don't have to worry about rules and regulations in a grid down economy, man, I could make even more money, right? So it's all about your mental attitude and what you want to focus on. I've never been more excited. I'm an official senior citizen this year. I'm turning 62. I've never been more excited. I wish I was 25. There's never been a better opportunity in the history of anything. These are the times to make money.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on today is I hear a lot about recession and valid complaints about it is tough to make ends meet when you're close to the line and then the prices of everything goes up and your salary does not. So what do you see as like really good opportunities for making money right now?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Hey, before we even get to that, it's never been an easy time, though, right? Ever.
Right.
I think of my grandfathers, right, that were coal miners and railroaders, and the abject poverty they lived. They thought they were like middle class or something. They lived in abject poverty. Looking back on it, right? So it's never been easy. And I all my life, I joke with my wife that she never worked. We had 6 kids, so she never worked. She never earned a paycheck. But she obviously worked hard. But all my adult life, with 6 kids, and we had one income, right? It was never easy. There was never a good time. I hear people say, well, we're going to wait till we can afford to have kids. You'll never afford to have kids, right? I couldn't. You have to just do what you do, right? And if you want to have a one or more spouses stay home, you make it work, right? We didn't live in the best house. We didn't drive the biggest SUV or the newest SUV. We tightened our belt and we said, we want to live on one income. We want to raise a big family. And that was our objective. That's what we wanted to do. And so if you take it from that attitude, you can do it because it's never going to be easy. Okay. Now, having said that, I know it does suck right now. Right? I know the price of eggs. I know the price of gasoline. Right. It's tough.
Eggs are about to go up again, by the way.
But even to that point.
Yeah.
And John, I'll ask you, how hard is it to get an employee that wants to work?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely it is.
Right. So if you want to work and have a job, again, there's never been a better time. All the baby boomers, and I'm at the tail end of the baby boom. Baby boomers have ruined my life. All of it, right? Bulk of them have been ahead of me and have ruined everything before I got there. And they're all retiring and leaving the system. And there's not enough boomers, or there's not enough Generation X's and Zoomers and millennials to make up for that. So employers like John are going to pull their hair out for the next 10 years or more, trying to find skilled, qualified workers. So number one, if you want to have a job, it's there, right? Never been a better chance, but you got to have skills. John's not going to hire somebody that can't do anything. Well, he actually even might hire somebody and he'll train them because he needs them. But that's what you need to do is get skills and abilities, right? When I was 17 and I joined the Marine Corps, I was about worthless, right? I couldn't do anything. I was stronger back then, right? And dumber that I'd go charge the hill or whatever that the Marines wanted me to do, but I had no skills or abilities. That's where I acquired them, So whether you need to go in the military or start out at a lower end job, you do that. You go out and get an education because if you have the skills and abilities, then regardless of all the negative things you hear in the media, the big trends are digitization, electrification, and infrastructure. Right? Those 3 things are going to drive the next 20 or 30 years. And real simply, what I mean with all that, digitization is what's been going on for 40 years. It's taken the analog economy and digitizing it. right? So we used to have typewriters. Now we have Chat GPT, which you don't even need a keyboard for. You just talk to the computer and it prints it out for you. But right, we're taking all the things that used to be analog and we're digitizing them. We used to have retail stores. Now we have Amazon, right? The whole economy is, even though it's been going that way for 4 years, it's still headed that way. Electrification is all the, the internal combustion and those type engines, they're all going to electrical things, right? So whether it's, a servo motor on something, or whether it's, an electric vehicle in your car, we're going more electrification. And then the infrastructure is going to be huge because we have to support all these structures that are going to digitization, electrification. So whether you want to work with your hands or work with your brain, right, or work with data, or whatever you want to work with, those three trends are going to be big employers for the next 10 to 20 years easily. And you look at what's going on the Gulf Coast, places like Louisiana, Texas, with the petrochemical industry and the things that are building up there. I mean, there have been hundreds of billions of dollars in investments, and it's just continuing to grow. The stuff in Ukraine with, oil prices and natural gas prices being really high in Europe, that's just causing more and more of that stuff to come to America. And the digitization and electronics and all these things with robotics and computers and artificial intelligence, that makes low-end countries in manufacturing like Vietnam or China, the Philippines, they're going to have their place. But a lot of that high-end stuff, the big dollar stuff that really matters, that's going to come back here. And again, it's just going to generate jobs for so many people that are willing to learn. And again, whether you want to work with your hands or work with your mind, those industries are packed solid.
Yeah, I think what I look for most right now when I'm trying to get helpers is work ethic.
Show up.
Yeah. Show up and be present.
Yeah.
And for those people that, again, if they're willing to show up and be present, then they just need to take that next step of how do they advance, and what do I have to do to get to the next level, right? And the next level may be a promotion, it may be being a manager, it may be going from a helper to being, the foreman of the job or the tool maker, whatever it is. It also could be having your own business. Someday you're not an employee, you're working for yourself, and that's where the real money's made. You will, if you're successful. If you're not successful, you won't make any money working for yourself. But if you can successfully work for yourself, you'll make more than you'll ever make working for anybody else. Period. And end of discussion. And even to that end, there's never, ever, ever been an easier time to start a business. Ever. And if we go into recession and things get worse, it will be in a better time.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because people don't get that, right? They don't get that when times are tough, it's the best time to start a business. Why is that? Yeah,
so when we go into a recession, it's a contraction. I guess this is something I didn't talk about with that whole bank crisis too.
Yeah.
All of this is, again, this isn't the system breaking down. This is the system functioning the way they want it to. They don't necessarily want the banks that are going under to go under. They didn't target those banks. But you look at the banks that went under. SVB was the basically tech startup company, right? All these zombie companies that haven't made any money, that have been sucking in capital. Well, when you start drawing that down, someone's going to get hurt, right? So not all the zombie companies can survive, right? So a couple of these other banks that went under, Signature Bank, actually not even big into crypto, but they were in the financing end of crypto. They never owned crypto. They were just the on and off ramps for getting in and out of the fiat money system into crypto. That's what Signature Bank did. Regulars came in on a Sunday or Saturday and shut them down, right? They weren't even insolvent, right? But they're going after certain industries, right? And the feds want to take some of the influence out of things like crypto. They want to take the influence out of these zombie companies. So the system isn't failing. The system is doing exactly what they want. So when you have a recession, and a recession is a downturn in the economy, right? And that's a depression, right? Just like you're going along and then you have a bump in the road and then there's a pothole.
Yeah.
That's a depression.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Economically, it's called a depression. They stopped calling it a depression because they don't want to scare people, but every recession is a depression because it's a depression. You have lower output. And so what happens is when the banking system gets dried up with capital, they can't loan money out. And so companies can't borrow money to expand, and consumers can't borrow money to buy things that they can't afford. So what happens? Economy contracts more. Then what happens? Well, less people spend and less employers expand. What happens? It gets lower, and it keeps going down and down and keep getting more of a depression until the Federal Reserve comes in and cuts interest rates and has easier monetary policy, right? It's just a business cycle. It's the way the system works. It isn't a failure of the system. It's the way the system works. And so the reason that it's the best time to start a business is when that cycle's going down, is that all the people that were on the edge are out of business, right? The guys that were way over leveraged they have to close their businesses, right? They can't afford to hire people. They can't make payroll. They're stuck with a lot of inventory. So the guys that are in business, or the guys that want to start a business, can go in and buy those people's assets on pennies on the dollar. And so you're going to go into an environment where you need less money and you have fewer competitors. So in a nutshell, I mean, that's the bottom line, and why it's better to start a business in a downturn.
Yeah, I also think when you figure out the way to position your product or service in a time when people are being more careful with their money, you get that message down, and when it turns back up and people are less careful with their money, I think you set yourself up for a growth cycle that's pretty cool.
And you're getting a better quality client or customer at that point too, right? If you can get that customer when they either think they're being underserved, or when they're being tight with their money, they're still willing to spend it with you, then they don't leave you when things are going up, and you're getting all those other people.
Mm-hmm.
You think of it in terms of Airbnb, and this is another. Although I don't think the whole real estate thing's going to collapse, I do think a lot of the luxury end or the second home end of the real estate market has some room to pull in, because look over the last at least 3 years, how many people have gone into Airbnbs where and I'm not talking about having a teeny house or something on your property, but people that have gone out and bought very expensive properties in, say, resort areas, and then the only way they can make payment on that is by renting them out every week. And they don't own one property, they maybe own 5 or 10. Well, the minute the economy slows down and they can't rent those out anymore, they can't make payment. They don't have any money tied up into it, so they just go into foreclosure, right? They walk away from it. Now, all those properties, which were, selling for big money, say in 2021, if we get into 2024, 2025, and those businesses are not there anymore, you'll get those properties for significant discounts. And again, that's the chance for someone to come in and buy those. You have to have the skill, the talent, and the money, right? If you don't have those things, though, you're still going to be broke. You have to be positioned to take advantage of the opportunity.
Yep. So what money-making opportunities do you see?
Right. Again, it depends where you're at. If you're that guy that just has $1,000, you know what? Focus on saving. Focus on learning how to get a better job, or trying to start your own business, or developing your skills, because you're never going to get anywhere. You need to earn. Right? In my podcast, I talk about earn, save, invest. Right? Very dull, very boring stuff that no one wants to hear about, but that's it. Earn, save, invest. So if you're on the lower end of things, don't worry about your money. If you have $1,000 and you can double it tomorrow, so what? You got $2,000, right? That's not going to change your life. Work towards improving yourself, invest in yourself, to get these jobs in digitization and electrification and infrastructure, because that's where the money's going to be made. If you're an investor and you do have whatever that amount is to invest in things, then don't give up on the economy, right? The grid goes down from time to time. There are hurricanes, there are snowstorms, there are wildfires. That's why we're all preppers. Those things are going to happen. There's going to be riots in cities, but the grid is going to stay up and running. And you so invest in those things. Look for the opportunities to invest in growing companies that are focused on these trending areas. And it's oil. I'm still holding oil stocks right now, which is a little iffy going into a recession. But the oil industry, the whole fossil fuel industry, has been so under invested in because of this whole ESG stuff, and everybody thinks we're gonna go to no fossil fuels tomorrow. We are going to get there, but it ain't going to be tomorrow. So I mean, look for these opportunities that are under invested in, and there's plenty of them. There's good, solid companies that are not going out of business, and they're both small businesses like we run, as well as big businesses, that you can invest in the stock market. So if you have a question, I guess maybe jump into a specific, but I mean, again, broadly speaking, you're looking for value. Nicole, you're in the coffee business, right? People are not. I don't care if we go into a deep recession tomorrow. People are still going to wake up and drink coffee, right? That's just what they do. So there will always be a space for coffee, and you can choose. Do you want to be Folgers? I don't think that's a brand anymore, right? Do you want to be Folgers or Maxwell House and be on the low end, or do you want to be Hollow Roast on the high end? Right?
Yeah.
And you pick and choose. What do you want to do? I'm not I'm a very specific kind of money manager. I don't go for the low end. I go for the high end.
Yeah.
That's not a good or bad thing. You just got to pick what you want, what end of the market you want to be at, right? John, I'm not going to find any of John's quality products at Walmart, right? I'm not going to find that kind of, if I need a harness or something or a case.
If you find John's products at Walmart, be very suspicious.
Right. And that's what it is, right? And so whether you're investing in the stock market or you're buying your own company or you're starting your own company or you're going to work for a company, look for those value propositions. There's a low end and a high end. There's always going to be. And the companies that are growing and developing are money makers. And we don't know specifically who, right? That's always the hard part. Is it going to be Tesla or is it going to be General Motors that has the most money on electric vehicles, right? Now, people will argue both ways. I don't know. I mean, I look at the way, obviously Tesla's got a great product and they have first mover advantage, but you look at the way the political system is filtering money into these green initiatives and the Inflation Reduction Act, right, which has nothing to do with inflation, is all about putting money basically into American infrastructure and labor unions. And that's going to favor General Motors probably over Tesla. So the bottom line is these profitable companies are going to keep making money. And when everyone's panicked, right, that's the time. It's the time to buy the stock. That's the time to start the business. That's the time to be the best employee. Is in a downturn, you don't want to be the slouch because that's the guy that's going to get fired. You want to be that producer.
Yep. So I'm reading this comment because they gave either John or me a super chat. It's the idea of too big to fail that scares me the most. The system is working, but it creates an unlimited safety net until it breaks. Then it will be a complete failure. No risk isn't capitalism.
Yeah. I mean, again, it all depends on what kind of failure it is, right? The Roman Empire eventually failed, right? So the way we do things is changing rapidly and drastically. Again, this is why I'm very excited about the future. I see great opportunities, but it's also going to be very bad for a lot of other people. From a societal change and a demographic change, that's changing the whole structure. The reason Japan will someday write off half of their debt is because of this change, right? That wasn't in the economic books 100 years ago. So as these things change, you just evolve with them. I don't know how. I don't know. My grandfather could not envision the life I lead.
Yeah.
I can't envision the life I lead. Right. What we're doing right now. When I was a kid, right? So I'm that old guy that's telling you about going uphill in the snow to school, twice. Going uphill twice ways. When I was a kid, what we're doing right now was the Jetsons. Right. It was the Jetsons cartoon where you had video.
I'm still waiting for my car that flies. I have been waiting for that since I was a child.
Me too. Yeah, I was 20
I was counting on it.
Still waiting on that. But what we're doing right now is unheard of, right? When not even that many years ago. 40 years ago, when I got my first cell phone, a little more than 40 years ago. Is it 40 years ago? I think it's 40, a little more than 40 years, 35 years, whatever it was. I had the cell phone in the car, it was mounted.
Yeah, I remember those with the big cord. My
non-roving best price was like 25 cents a minute.
Yeah.
That was the best price I was getting. Now I talk on a cell phone nonstop and stream data and watch movies, and this is deflationary. This has made when I started a business, when I started my multi-million dollar business I'm in today, I started with a used cell phone, a refurbished laptop. That was it. Those two things. It didn't take me any capital to actually start the business. It was in my mind, right? It was my ability in my head. It wasn't the capital investment. I run my business with this technology. I would have had to have secretaries and filing cabinets and right for all the minutia and paperwork and regulatory stuff to do what I do. 20 years ago, I couldn't have done it. Now I can I do it here, right? I do it in this simple little office.
Yeah.
Because I want a simple office. I could have a big, huge building with employees if I wanted those headaches. I don't want that. So these things are here and they're available. Again, with telephone calls, I can remember as a little kid, New York to Los Angeles phone call. It's like $100 for a 10, 15 minute telephone.
Yep. $1,000 a month phone line.
All these things that are changing are creating opportunities, right? They're going to be bad and devastating for some people. But, my grandfather couldn't imagine this world. So I can't imagine the world for my grandkids. But if they're smart, if they know critical thinking skills, if they're ambitious, if they're dedicated and disciplined, right, the world is theirs to go make out, to do things with it. There's always a market, right? In the deepest days of the Soviet Union, there was the black market, right? There's always an opportunity to make money, always.
Okay, Adam says, good advice for the guy with 1,000. What if somebody has 100,000 just sitting around? Thoughts on best place to invest today besides riding the regional bank stock bounce back up?
Yeah, so excellent question. So if you have that kind of money, you got a couple options. I personally am not much in the stock market right now. I'm only about 10%, right? I got the bulk of my money out of the stock market because I think we're going lower. I've been thinking that for 6 months and I'm wrong, right? We're even with the devastation we've seen the last couple of days, S&P 500 is still at its average price. There's no big panic yet in the market. I'm worried about the recession and decreasing profit margins. So that's why I'm conservative. So I'm advising people that rather than to be, so you really have two choices. But you either want to be in a short-term instrument like a CD at the bank or a treasury bill or a treasury note, something that's under 2 years, 18-month CD or a 3-month treasury or something like that. The yields that we're getting on those we haven't seen since the 90s, right? So again, it's still negative, right? So even though it's paying 4.5%, we're still losing money because of inflation. But still, that's where you want to put your money. You either want to be in those kind of instruments, or if you're like me, is looking for an opportunity. I have my money in money market funds. Okay, and if you have $100,000, you can go to a place like Charles Schwab or Fidelity. Pick whoever discount broker you want to go to. But they're just baseline money market funds right now are paying about 4.5%. And if you have $1 million or more, you can get higher than that. But about 4.5%. What I like about that is they're not protected, right? They're not FDIC insured, right? But I think for that system to go down, the whole U.S. economy would go down, and no one's going to let that happen. So to that degree, I think they're too big to fail. But those, why I like those kind of instruments the most is that they're 100% liquid, right? In fact, right now, one of the reasons I was late is because I was doing a trade, Nicole, before I got on. I can take the money that's in that money market fund and I can use it to buy something right now today. And if I need the cash, I can have the cash within maybe 2 business days. So there's no liquidity issue. It's almost as good as cash. Where if I'm tied up in a 3-month CD or an 18-month treasury or something, that sounds like a short amount of time, or sounds narrow, but it's not, because the best part of any market happens within 2 weeks to 2 months. Right? Mm-hmm. Look at the chart of any market. Once it starts to move, man, the quicker you get in, the more money you'll make, and that's the easiest money. Everybody waits till it's at the top, right? When Bitcoin was at $68,000, everybody I knew was telling me to buy Bitcoin. Right? Everybody.
Nobody's telling you to buy it now, are they?
No. When it was at 16,000, literally, I don't think I got one phone call. Right? Maybe one.
I'm surprised Jack didn't call you.
Well, Jack's always telling me to buy Bitcoin. But in general, right? I mean, everybody wants to get in at the top, but really you're making that money on the move off the bottom. So again, the reason I like money market funds, and there's a million of them out there, you want to be an investment grade, right? That's the key word. When you hear things like high yield, that's euphemism for junk bonds, okay? So you don't want to be in high yield, but you want to be an investment grade money market funds. You can get money market funds that invest in U.S. Treasuries, which again are considered safe. They're going to pay a little bit less yield, but the advantage of those money market funds is, man, you can move when the lightning strikes, you can move.
Yeah. Well, here's the question everybody's wondering about the bank crashes. What do you think about this being a psyop to move us into central bank digital currency?
Yeah. I got mixed emotions on that.
Yeah.
I kind of alluded to that before. In fact, I shot Jack an email to kind of poke him on that, and he didn't want to talk about it or something. Okay, or he didn't understand what I was saying. I was too cryptic. But two of the 3 banks that have failed are tied directly to crypto, directly.
Yeah.
And even the other one that isn't directly tied is still indirectly tied. So I think they are definitely targeting. And this gets back to, right, they're trying to get rid of zombie companies. They're trying to get rid of things they don't want. They're trying to get rid of the shadow banking system, peer-to-peer lending, right? I mean, all those things that the establishment doesn't want, they're going to try and get rid of. So I think some of this is a move to that. It is very successful. The PSYOP works. It works on this community. You would not believe the amount of people that I hear from that they hate the Federal Reserve. They hate the national debt, right? They hate all these things. But man, when there's a panic, they want to go in and buy government treasuries, right? Everybody last year was jumping into I bonds, because it was paying 9% interest. I'm like, yeah, but it's still negative interest rate because inflation's at 9%. Why do you want to tie your money up for a year at least and still get a negative interest rate? So yeah, I do think it is a psyop of sorts to get people into it. And the big banks benefit. This also has been an attack on small regional banks. JP Morgan Chase through this last week has assets coming into it. Right? They're the biggest bank in the U.S. And when things like this happen, they just get bigger. So that's why the elites and the establishment, they like creating these false flag type operations. Having said all that, I think something like a CBDC is much more applicable to China than it is to us, just like the shutdowns were much more exaggerated in China than they were here. Right? We both did them. They were both stupid. They were both wrong. They both violated human rights and our civil liberties and all that. But they were still employed on a much stricter, harder basis in China than the U.S. And I think that's what you're going to see with these government-based digital currencies. And in China's case, I don't think it's so much to stop them from buying certain things. I think it's just capital controls where they don't want the money leaving the country. to a degree, that's going to be the same thing here. But the digital currency in America is all about collecting taxes. Right? That's my take. My cynical take is they really don't care if you're buying marijuana with it or internet porn or gambling, or they don't so much care what you do with it. They just want to get the tax revenue, right? So as long as they can tax your marijuana, they're happy with you buying it. So I really think it's all about taking things out of the gray economy and making things more tax-based. You know, we were seeing, Nicole, I think actually last time you and I talked like this, we mentioned the $600 thing at
Oh yeah, the $600 reporting thing for Venmo or whatever.
Venmo and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Right. They don't really care what you're selling. They just want their cut of it. So I think more than anything in the U.S., it's trying to make that tax revenue. Personally, from a greedy standpoint, I don't care because I'm 100% digital. All right, They could go to a CBDC tomorrow, wouldn't affect me because literally 100% of my income stream is digital in some form or another, right? Whether it's a bank transfer or so no one hands me cash. So
I'm totally gonna hand you cash next time I see you, just to do it.
I won't take it. I love.
He got a crystal ball. He had to actually completely change what he said on his podcast because Tactical gave him a crystal ball.
I have it right here. And I'll tell you a quick story. I would show you this if I could. My wife opened my blinds the other day, and my crystal ball was sitting too close to my computer, and it was like a magnifying glass, and it started to melt the plastic on my computer. So I could have had a critical data failure had my crystal ball caused a fire in my house, and it would have been all Tactical's fault.
All Tactical.
But I keep it on my desk just to think of you guys. With that whole thing, the whole Venmo stuff, again, I think it's less about social controls. They do that to pin us against each other so we all hate each other, but they just want their money. And I love all the people that contribute on my
your Fountain FM.
My was it?
Fountain.
My Fountain, right? The Fountain thing. I read the comments there. I don't reply to comments because, again, I am the most regulated industry on the face of the earth, and everything I put into writing, everything has to be maintained for at least 5 years in an auditable file that the SEC can come in and read. So you don't see me comment on a lot of social media things from a business perspective because I just don't want to maintain all the paperwork. So I read all the Fountain comments. I love the Satoshis you guys give me, but I haven't cashed any of them in because I don't want to take possession yet because I don't want to have to click that box on my tax form saying that I've ever owned or controlled Bitcoin. So I encourage all you to give me $100,000 or more in Bitcoin. Force me to go out and collect that. Force me to own Bitcoin. I'm more than willing to change my position on that.
Pugliano hates money.
I hate money. So anyways, I think it's all about taxes. John, you're the expert on taxes.
I'm not the expert on taxes.
Yeah, you have the best tax story ever.
You're the expert on the lengths they'll go to collect their taxes.
I like your public facing. I don't take cash though. That's I'm there too. I don't take cash either.
Let me repeat.
Prank call.
I don't own crypto. I don't take cash. I have the only precious metal I have in the world is right here. I gave away all my guns. I have nothing.
Right.
Are you happy?
I have nothing and I'm happy. So I don't take cash. Don't give me cash. I won't take it.
Okay.
Not everybody will get that, John.
Yeah. Prank call.
So assuming SVB are manipulation as opposed to market crisis, do U.S. indices crumble before FX? The other way around or not at all? That's from Snowbird, whose nickname I did not know a week ago.
And in terms of the SBV, the Silicon Valley Bank, I don't necessarily think it's manipulation. I just think it's the chicken's coming home to roost, right? The Federal Reserve is raising interest rates and tightening credit on purpose, right? They want to break something. They want to slow down the economy. I don't think they care so much whether it's a bank in California or one in Missouri or whatever. They just want to break something. So again, I don't think there's a conspiracy theory necessarily. Although again, it is convenient that it's hitting crypto markets and things like that. But as far as that with FX and the foreign currencies and all that, I think that although things are going to vary, I don't think the U.S. dollar is going anywhere for a long time. There's no real other competitor. There is not a better place on the face of the earth to do business than North America. Right? If you go from Canada to the Panama Canal, right, that region, we have almost all the resources we need. Not all of them, but we have almost all the resources we need. We have a pretty good workforce in that area. It's different skill levels, high, low tech, lots of open land. Whenever I hear about crowding in the cities and overpopulation, I look around and I see all the empty space all over the world. And North America geographically is just blessed. It's hard to screw it up. From our rivers to our oceans to all the natural resources we have. So we are always going to be the best house in a bad neighborhood. So I'm not of the opinion that U.S. markets are going to crash. And to the extent they do, it's going to be better to be here than anywhere else. So I really don't bet on FX markets and things. And again, even with precious metals, I think precious metals are going to go up in value, not because they're going to become some exotic thing that we need in a breakdown scenario. They're just going to become, they're just rare, right? So we need them. We need more copper to make all the conversion to digitization and electrification of the grid, right? So copper prices, I think, are naturally going to go up. I think cobalt and zinc and all these minerals, again, as part of that infrastructure. We are going to continue to build infrastructure. That's going to cause things like commodity prices to go up. I don't think it's going to be because the economy breaks down. I think that's the question he was asking.
Yeah. Here's another one. At what point should a poor person invest?
When they're not poor.
Yourself.
John Willis, answer this one first.
Invest in yourself.
Absolutely.
Make yourself more valuable. It's never been easier than ever, right? I used to have to call people and talk to 100 people and wait for 99 of them to call me back to kind of get the answer, to send me a sample that took 6 weeks. And then we commit to it and it takes 6 months. Right now, I voice to text and I message it to somebody, and then I forward that message to 10 other people. And 2 of them are going to be on the other side of the world, and it's already in motion. And then at 4:30 in the morning, 3 more of them are going to be like, Roger that. And one of them's going to be like, what the fuck were you talking about last night? I'm like, I'm glad you asked, because that reminded me. And now we're in motion. Like, it's never been easier. People, I really feel like people want society to collapse so that their inaction is justifiable. Like, if you don't have enough money, make more money. It's way easier to make $10,000 than it is to save $10,000. Just figure out how to make yourself valuable. Whatever it is you're doing for money, do more of that and go way above that. If you want to be paid more, you need to operate for the job that you want to be paid for. Somebody will notice the value and will pay you for that.
I will pay someone $200,000 a year if they can make me $300,000.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to pay you $200,000.
Absolutely.
Make me $3 though.
And everybody on here, for all you I don't do social media guys, you're doing it right now. Learn this thing. If you walk in my door and you're like, hey, here is an Instagram page I manage and it's better than yours, I will pay you. Like, you show me how to monetize that and you will be here on my staff. Like, you want to move to Camden and you want to live here, it's awesome. You have to have some skill. There's 100 of them right here. Rather than playing video games and Netflix tonight, look up current Instagram trends for 23.
That invest in yourself is exactly what I tell everybody. Right? It doesn't matter what income level you're at or how much net worth you have. You start with yourself, right? You can always get a better return. This is a little bit of a slip up for rich people, though. I'll get to that in a second. You can always make more money by investing in yourself, because you can always, overnight, you can increase your output by 1,000%, right? You're always going to be able to be more productive yourself. So that's always the best place to invest. But at some point, you want to diversify away from yourself with your investments. So kind of to this guy's question about when do you start invest, you have to at some point diversify away from yourself. This is where a lot of small business guys make a mistake, because they don't think they're ever going to get old. They don't think they're ever going to get sick. They don't think they're going to die tomorrow and leave their wife with a business that she has no idea how to run, right? So you have to eventually get outside of yourself, and you do that for diversification, because even though you'll never get the exact payback, you'll still get more money, right? And that's, I don't complain about the IRS. I don't complain about the Federal Reserve. When I hear complaints about those things, I hear excuses for why you can't be successful, right? Don't complain about these other things. Figure out, if you don't, I'm not happy to pay taxes, right? But I would rather pay 50% taxes on $1 million
Yep.
than pay no taxes on $10,000, right?
Yep.
It's about looking at that bigger picture. And so on a small scale, though, in terms of when do you actually invest, generally, broad I think, I really think that you got to have about a year's pay saved up to even think about investing, okay? And even then, you're just minorly thinking about it, because you're going to make more money by working more overtime, or by improving your skills, or getting a better job, or starting your own company. That's where you're going to make more money. But once you get to about a year's pay, and a year's pay is different for everybody, so that's kind of a broad thing to think about. But about a year's pay, the reason that makes a difference is that if you start getting 5, 6, 10% interest on that, then it starts to become something, right? Average take home for a household's about $60,000, $70,000. So if you get a 10% return on $60,000, that's $6,000. That's almost maxing out your Roth IRA, right? So that's some income, right? You get a 10% return on $1,000. What are you going to buy? Lunch? You don't get anything out of it. So once you get to about a year's pay, you want to start taking things more seriously then. And I'm not telling up till then you save, right? It's earn, save, invest. And even when you're making big money, you know why I have so much money? Because I earn and save. Right? I earn and save before I ever invest. And when my investments make money, I save it and I reinvest it and I make more. It earn and save. The biggest problem is people spend too much money.
Why does Pug hate lunch? That's from Brian Young.
I love lunch as long as Brian's paying for it.
Awesome. Well, we're at about an hour, guys. Do we want to go once around the horn, or anything else you want to bring up today?
You guys got me fired up. So I'm on that thing about there's never been a better time. I don't have time for complainers. I just don't want to deal with it. I spend my life around people that are achievers. Right? It doesn't mean they're all rich and successful, but they're getting there. Right? I love seeing an 18-year-old kid that's out doing something. That brings me the best joy in the world, of seeing young people that do that. So I want to emphasize to the younger people in the audience, man, again, there's never been a better time. If you focus on improving your skills and being a good employee, and someday maybe either working your way up or owning your own business someday, only bad luck will stop you at that point. Nobody else will. The Federal Reserve won't, the IRS, the central bank digital currencies, none of that's going to matter. Your enemy is you. That's what's holding you back. And a lot of what's holding you back is not only that fear of getting ahead, but the inability to save money to get ahead. You have to save. Right? I have 10 wealth building principles. The 9th one is the episode no one ever listens to. It's called Being a Giver. Right? You have to give and whether this is giving back or contributing, to charities and things, not only that aspect of it, but even just the part about, if you want that next promotion, you got to give before you get it. You got to prove that you're worthy of that. And you want to start a business, you got to create products and services that are good that people want. Or you can't just wish for it. You have to produce. You have to give that first before you're ever getting anything back. And but it's all up to you. It's in your own hands. It's, you were living in such prosperous, excellent times. Don't let all this negativity get you down. If I listened to every negative thing that ever happened in my life, I'd still be in a VFW club in Western Pennsylvania, drunk, right? That's where I'd be. I'd be drunk in a bar outside of a coal mine in Pennsylvania.
Yep. John Willis, what do you got to say?
Man, people just like negativity. They're drawn to negativity. We did this shirt. So
I want to see that shirt.
High Point, the champagne of pistols, right? It's not. Everybody knows it's junk. Everybody knows that the Glock is a hammer. It fires every single time, whether you like it or not. But we made this little video, and we were talking about how Glocks are under-engineered, and they're the guns of criminals, and really High Point is a great firearm. And we made that video, and there was a little 15-second clip that went onto a TikTok, and we have 6 million views, and we have 6,500 comments. I've made thousands of dollars off of that video because people who show up, who have never been on my YouTube or my TikTok or anywhere, have shown up because they don't like what was said. You know where they didn't show up? They didn't show up at any of those videos I make every morning at 4:30 a.m. talking about get up, do what people aren't willing to do, add value, find something you love. They haven't showed up for any of those. They showed up for the shit they don't like, and we're making money from it. And if people just operated literally like a light switch, is your life fucked up? Do better shit. Get away from people that are negative. Get away from people that are, if you show up to a group of people who you haven't seen for a while and they start complaining about people you don't know, get the fuck away from those people. Everyone is contagious and you're going to catch something. And it literally is as simple as a light switch. Just operate in positivity, and negative people, they won't want to be around you, and your life will get a lot better. And the people that are left in your life, they will operate on a level and they will pull you up and you will pull them up, and things will get simpler.
Yeah, I think that was the hardest thing for me to implement in my life when I realized I had to change was the people around me.
Yes. If you're look at your crew, if you're the smartest person in your crew, you're in the wrong room. If you've got people around you that they just show up, but nothing really gets done, or it gets done halfway, you got to find different people.
Yep. Absolutely true.
That's the key, man. Birds of a feather flock together.
Do what you really believe in your heart is right, and the right people will show up. Just start doing good shit, and then build content around that, and your group will show up.
And that's that whole thing of showing up. Even when you have your own business and you're making products and services, that's where my purity goes out the window in terms of I don't care. Like if I was making, Nicole, if I was you and I was producing coffee, I wouldn't care who bought it, right? I don't care if they're yuppies. I don't care if they're organic. I don't care if they're gun-toting libertarian. I want them to buy my coffee. Right? I would want them to buy my coffee. I don't care about, when it comes to business, you mind your own business, right? You make great products and services, and whoever wants to come buy them, let them come buy them. But in terms of your personal life, yeah, you want to insulate yourself from negative non-achievers, because
I do
you'll be caught up in it.
I do somewhat care who buys my coffee, in that if they're a problematic customer, that's a problem.
That's different.
No, but I don't have that.
That's different. Different story. Yeah.
Yeah, we monetize those people. It's not about doing your best. You have to do what's required. What is required to have what you want? What is required to get the job done? You might think your product's great, but really your product's not great. right? And that's why your shit doesn't sell. You have to make your product better, or you adjust your price, right? You have to, one of those two things has to happen. And it's not about, well, I did my best. No, your best wasn't good enough, or it would be perfect. We wouldn't be having the conversation. You have to do what is required. And that's it. What does it take to accomplish this? And that is what's required. People set their bars very low.
When it comes to things like firing customers, I've been doing what I do long enough. I never prospect them to begin with, right? I don't fire customers because I never bring them on.
Yeah, that's good.
I know what I don't want, but in terms of, I was referring more in terms of social and societal issues. And I don't care who buys my products in terms of that, but yeah, in terms of all my business and all businesses are two ways. It's got to be good for me. It's got to be good for them. And in fact, it's got to be better for me and better for them, right? And just in terms of, they're going to come to me because they think I'm going to do a better job for them than someone else. And I want them as a client because I think they're going to be, a better source of income for me than someone else. So it's all about better. It's not compromise. I don't want to compromise at all.
You service the customer, you give them the best absolute product possible anywhere, and then you give them a good experience. And then you don't have to pay for advertising. They're going to bring their friends that are going to beat your door down wanting to do business with you.
Many years ago, when I was thinking about starting a business, I didn't know how to do it yet. I was still thinking and learning. Nicole, you had your episode not too long about being a 5-year overnight success. Yeah, I'm like I'm a 25-year overnight success.
Overnight success.
Spent a lot of time getting to where I am. But I was an industrial sales guy, and I traveled initially all around the country and then all around the world, selling machinery and equipment and materials, stuff like that. I would love, my favorite, usually it was the big companies, but my favorite part of that job was finding small entrepreneurs to sell to, or even just to talk to, call them. They wouldn't even be prospects, but I'd call on them because I wanted to learn about their business. But I would meet a guy that would have a factory in the middle of Nebraska, no one around for miles. And he would start telling me about what he did in his product. And they almost always told me, I never advertise. Never. Because I'd say, like, how does, you make this widget. How does someone in Japan know to buy this thing in Nebraska? And he's like, been making a good product for 35 years. And I made one and sold it. And then I made two. And then I made three. Mm-hmm. And that, I would think about that. And I'd say, how can I do that? How can I make my product or service so good that I sell it to one person and they turn it into two, and then three, and then four, right? And that's, it's not about hype and marketing and all that nonsense, because you'll get those customers, but then you'll lose them, right? Very fickle.
Yeah.
You create the true product for you that's right and does what you says it does, and then you don't try and force it. I hate people. Jack calls, financial guys, financial liars, right? Because they're the guys that are always twisting your arm. They're going to, you go to some chamber of commerce meeting, right? There's 15 insurance salesmen trying to give you their business card. Who'd want to do that for a living, right? I wanted to put together financial products that worked and did what I said they did and sell it to the right person, right? The person that, may not be for John, but maybe it's for Nicole. Well, I'm not going to try and convince John that it's for him. I'm just going to sell it to Nicole. I'm going to service Nicole's needs. And then she's going to tell somebody about it, like her, and they're going to buy it, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're selling widgets or financial products or coffee or tactical equipment. It's all the same. Create a good product for the niche you're servicing. Stand behind your product. Work like hell. And you'll work yourself to death, and it all works out.
Yeah. I'm in the hard work shirt today because I was reminding myself to work hard this morning when I got up. The cool thing about John Willis's t-shirts is they have all these different messages, and you can think, like, where is my mentality a little deficit today? Okay, I'll wear that shirt. And it's a reminder. Which, I play those games with myself all the time. Half the time when I get up and I say something on my social media about motivational, it's because I'm motivating myself to get through whatever negative outlook I had that morning when I have one. So
It's all about motivation.
I think some people think we get up and we're just positive all the time. It's like, no, that's not human. But if you allow yourself to stay in the negative when that thought comes, man, that really does make a difference.
Give yourself some time, Nicole, though, because I am always happy now.
Are you?
I am. I just love life. I mean, everything about my life is wonderful. Even my old arthritic back,
Yeah.
At least I have a back, right? I could be dead.
You still have a back. Woo!
I am.
Your legs still move.
I am happy, man. I'm happy every day to get up, and I will never retire as long as I have my mind and I can sit in this chair and work. And I got no desire to go play golf or go shoot at the range every day. I love what I do, and I form my life around that. So there's almost nothing in life that I don't like.
So, John, are you going to come to Self-Reliance Festival one day?
I think I'm going to come this next fall, whenever
October. Yeah.
I want to, and to John's point about no one watching that video, I'm going to schedule mine either extremely early in the morning or really late at night when no one's around. And I'm going to probably have a topic like how to get rich the slow, hard way. And two people will show up, right? My wife and someone else will show up. And then I'll spend all my time with that person and try and make them successful.
Yep. Your success rate will be higher.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that'll be a person I want to hang around.
Yeah, Brian will buy you lunch, apparently, if you come out.
I will be at Nicole's workshop, right? A plug-in for Living Free Tennessee 23. Yeah. I'll be there. I'm going to talk about, I think we change the topic every week, but I think it's going to be recession. Don't let a crisis go to waste.
Yep. Which is kind of what today was about.
We'll get into the details of today where we can actually answer people's questions and try and formulate plans for them.
Yeah.
We'll try and even help Brian.
You're going to help Brian. That's a heavy lift, man. That's a heavy lift. All right, guys, let's go once around the horn. How do people interact with you outside of this broadcast? Start with you, John Pugliano.
Wealthsteading is my podcast. Investablewealth.com is my investment firm. You can find me. If you look for me, you can find me. Investable Wealth. It's not going to be for 99.99% of you guys that are out there, right? You don't have the money or the risk tolerance or the attitude to make it work, but someone does, so I'm there. In terms of Wealthsteading, though, my podcast, it's a spin on homesteading, right? Wealthsteading. I'm too lazy to have a homestead and raise chickens and work hard for a living. So I want my assets to work for me instead of my arthritic back. So that's where the Wealthsteading name came from.
Oh, the internet got him.
Yeah.
And that was him, not me, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Well,
he'll be back.
Well, the Wealthsteading Podcast.com for John Pugliano. And I can say this about that. When I realized that I had what a poverty mindset was and that I needed to change it, one of the steps I took that cost me $0 was to start listening to that podcast to develop a better knowledge of just how finances work. And I don't necessarily mean personal budget finances, but investing and all of those things. And so even though I didn't have money to invest, I was getting the knowledge so that when I have money to invest, I knew what was going on. And it wasn't like I just started for the first time. It looks like John just completely lost internet. So definitely check that out. It's free and his podcasts are very well done. John Willis, what would you like to say?
I see guys in the list here, and I know some of them. I do business with some of them, and others I don't. But one thing that everybody on this list has in common is that you all have 24 hours. It's just what you choose to do with that 24 hours. And I don't care what you do with your time. I have no say in it whatsoever. I don't care what you do until you tell me what you can't do. So just if you're happy with how you're doing things, then that's perfect. That's great for you. That's it. I do a live feed every night at 9:00. Join in. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm literally everywhere. And I have different videos in different places. And we've got a bunch of different podcasts and vlogs that we do also that are on YouTube. And then we have a membership there also. So join in. If you like what the things I say and you want to be a part of what we're doing, show up. That's all it takes. And if you have questions and there's anything I can do for you, ask. That's all.
Yeah. And I will say that if you get involved with John's community by coming to some of these live streams and talking to people, the people in the community are usually pretty awesome. And that's also free. That's something you can do for free that starts you developing relationships, being exposed to people who are the kind of positive influences you want to have around you. And sometimes if you've built a life where you're not in that situation, it's again the first step towards making your life better. And I love that. I'm Nicole Sauce from the Living Free in Tennessee podcast. We are an audio podcast. I also record most of them live on my YouTube channel. It's livingfreeintennessee.com. And I also work with John Willis on a big event that's coming in a week and a half called the Self-Reliance Festival, March 25th and 26th. That's selfreliancefestival.com. We have both digital passes, in-person passes. In-person's better because you meet the people. And the Friday before that, we have Bear Independence Company, Refuge Medical coming out to do Responder 1 training. I have like 5 seats left in the afternoon class. If you want to grab a ticket, grab it now because we are like this close to sold out. Anyway, thank you for joining us today, guys, and we'll see you soon.